I'm currently in phase 2 of my Marvel journey, my first time watching all of the Marvel films, and when I watched the first Thor film, I really liked it. So I was understandably really quite excited to check out the second one and see what it was all about. And I'm really pleased to say that I also really enjoyed this one. Maybe more than I did the first one. I'm not 100% sure, but certainly I really liked it. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but I will give some thoughts on some things that happened while kind of pussyfooting around the spoiler aspects. But if you don't want to know absolutely anything about it, I will just say I enjoyed it, and like pretty much every Marvel fan, at least from what I've googled, definitely recommend it. So Thor 2, also known as Thor: The Dark World, was released in 2013 and is directed by Alan Taylor, starring of course Chris Hemsworth as Thor. We also have Natalie Portman as Jane Foster and Tom Hiddleston as Loki. Brilliant cast. Christopher Eccleston, Anthony Hopkins, Idris Elba. Really have no complaints about any of the casting at all. The narrative itself, I thought was pretty good. I really liked it. I'm trying to find a way to describe it that doesn't ruin it, but basically, Jane Foster gets a lot of power inside of her accidentally because of a portal that's been left open, and Thor must bring her back to his world to try and work out how to extract this. Meanwhile, there are other things going on in terms of big battles, rebuilding of bridges. I really don't want to go into too much detail, partly because it's very complex and there are a lot of different things going on here, but also because I don't want to spoil anything. I think it's better to go in relatively blind if you've seen the first film. If you haven't seen the first film, there will be aspects that make no sense, so I definitely think, from my perspective, these need to be watched in order. At least the Thor films. But I liked, in the first film, Jane Foster as a character, I wasn't that bothered about. I wasn't really taken by her. I didn't dislike her, but I just didn't care. But in this film, I actually have a newfound appreciation for her. I liked the way she interacted with Thor and, the other world. It was really fascinating to see. Two things about this actually that I liked. The first is the level of unpredictability. I didn't know how they were going to solve X or Y problem. There was a lot going on, which means that when you're watching it, there's a lot to pay attention to. And I do think it's one of those films where I've probably missed some things. I definitely think I would need to watch it a second time to kind of fully make sure I've engaged with every aspect of it. It's very busy. I've almost definitely missed something interesting. But because there's a lot going on, it means that Thor's mind is in all kinds of different places, and it's very fast paced and it's unpredictable, and you kind of don't know what's going to happen next. And that includes the development of certain characters. There are certain characters, without spoiling this, certain characters have a much bigger character development than others. And while I may have not liked the characters in the past, it doesn't mean that I like them now, but I do appreciate that they had a moment. I might explain what I mean by that at the very end of the spoiler, because I'm not sure if that's very clear. But either way, the characters across the board had some great character development from who they were in the previous film and where applicable in the Avengers as well. The other thing I like about this is how realistic it is. One thing that I've found with my Marvel journey is that the characters are so genuine. The characters go through these fantastic scenarios. For example, if you take the previous Iron Man film, I won't go into too much detail, I won't spoil it, but I feel like Iron Man was displaying genuine emotion and post-traumatic stress from these colossal events that had happened during the Avengers. Most other superhero films, the superheroes go through these mind-boggling things, particularly when they're just humans in a suit, and then they never kind of have any knock-on effects. They never have any affected mental health because of it. But Marvel really do this very well. There's a scene near the beginning of this film where there's a police officer and something happens with Jane Foster. I won't say too much, but it's an explosive scene and really very well directed. I really enjoyed it. And the police officer's response was genuine, and just everything that happened seemed like what would happen if that happened in real life. And Marvel does that very well. The way that people engage with these scenes on screen, they're believable. the primary characters are believable, but even the supporting cast and the extras as well, everything just seems realistic, and it's so easy to be immersed in this immersive experience and to feel like it is actually happening. And that, I think, Marvel does better than pretty much any other studio or production that I have seen. And Thor is a shining example of that. The development of the narrative I really enjoyed. I thought it worked really well. As I said, very busy, a lot going on. With just a one-time viewing, I almost definitely have missed some things. But I would happily go back and watch it again, and I probably will. But I'm really thoroughly enjoying my first, my Marvel experience, my Marvel journey. I am doing it chronologically, and so far I've had a lot of fun with it. There have been no real weak links, but there have been some films that have stood out more than others, and Thor: The Dark World is one of those. Captain America: Winter Soldier next, looking forward to it. Definitely feeling very positive about this.